Hey everyone, it's Pam from Crafts by Pam, and welcome to another card tutorial on my YouTube channel and blog featuring Pajama Crafter stamps. I'm going to show you today how to use simple tools from your craft room to create dimension on your cards. Here's a closer look at the card that we're going to be making today, featuring this sweet little cow at a picnic, drinking his milk, and a sentiment mooch love. To get started with our card today, we're going to need a side folding card base that's measured at 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches and scored at 4.25 inches, a black sheet of cardstock measured at 4.25 inches by 5.5 inches, and a mat that's cut to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. I also have some gingham pattern paper cut to 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, as well as some watercolor cardstock that's cut with a stitch rectangle die at 2 3/4 by 4 inches. I also have a black flag die cut piece and some grass. We'll go ahead and begin our card today by folding our card base and using a bone folder to go ahead and smooth out that crease where we had scored at 4.25 inches. That will be our card base. Next, we'll take our black cardstock and cover our card base with that so that we have a black finish on the front of our card. So I'm just using some tape runner adhesive to adhere that down. Next, we're going to use our red cardstock and we're going to take a corner punch at the medium size to the upper left hand corner and the bottom right hand corner of that cardstock. Then I'll take some tape runner adhesive just to adhere that mat down to our black cardstock. Next, I'm going to take that gingham cardstock and do the same thing. On the 2.5 inch side at the top, I'm going to punch the upper left hand corner and the bottom right hand corner just as I did with the red mat that we used. And I'm going to adhere this down with some tape runner adhesive. Now we can go ahead and create our background for our cow using our watercolor cardstock. I have some tumbled glass distress ink, and because it's going to represent the sky and I want it kind of patchy, I am using a distress ink and not the oxide. So the white spots will represent the clouds in my sky. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that on most of the cardstock. I'm going to kind of avoid the bottoms because I'm going to cover that up anyway. But here I have a grass stencil from my stash. I've adhered my cardstock down to my work surface and now I've adhered my stencil down. And you'll see in a minute I'm going to make a mistake, and that is that my cardstock is not adhered well down to my work surface. So I'm going to go ahead and push that down again, move my stencil up just a tiny bit to kind of fix some of that splotch that I have on the left hand side. I decided to go ahead and include that so you can see how I fix this mistake without starting over. So I used the Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink to fill in our grass, and then now we just have that small splotch. So here's the stamp set we're going to use today called Chillin with the Herd from Pajama Crafter Stamps. It has some cute punny sentiments as well as some cute images of these cows on a picnic. So we've got picnic blanket, the basket, the food, the drink. We've got two cows we could choose from. I'm going to use this cow in the lower right hand corner, the basket, the glass of milk, the mooch love, and the picnic blanket. I've already stamped these out onto some alcohol marker friendly paper, and I'm just quickly coloring these in. I'm not really using too much detail for coloring these in because a lot of them are going to be covered up by parts of the scene or by other parts. But here is where the details come in. So now that it's colored, I'm going back in with that darker red and I'm adding lines to kind of get that gingham pattern onto my picnic blanket. And then I'm going back in with a fine tip black marker to put in the lines of our gingham pattern. And that combined with the shadow created with the darker red color make it look more realistic, more detailed, and a little bit more fun. And then now I'm going to go ahead with my cow and I'm going to modify his eye. So he has like a little squinty eye and I just made that a complete circle with a dot in the middle. I'm also adding some cow spots. So I have a spot around his eye and then I'm going to do another spot around his other eye, which you can't see because it is hidden by his toupee. Is what I'm calling it. And then I'm going in with that same marker to fill in his ear and his hooves. And I went ahead and used this black fine marker because it is fine tip. And since these are a little bit small, this will ensure that I'm not going outside the line. So I do his tail here at the bottom as well. So now we're going to go ahead and color his jeans. And I just used some blue markers from Copic to color those in. And when I did my sample image for my pictures, I did not color in the shirt. I wanted it to be white. But this time I thought I would try to go ahead and make it red. So I went around with my dark marker and then I'm blending that out with my lighter red color and just filling that in. And then I have some light pink here that I'm using for the inside of his ear and for his nose and mouth. And then I'm going to go in with grays for his toupee or just his hair. I am doing a little bit detail here because I know this will show, so I'm doing the outside shading with the darker gray, and then I'm going in with a lighter gray to fill in and blend out that darker gray. I think it's kind of cool that he has this hair. I think that's what really makes this cow unique. So I had fun coloring that. So now I'm going ahead and coloring in his picnic basket. I'm just using a light brown tone or tan tone to color that in completely. I'm not doing any sort of shading because this is going to be hidden mostly. And I'm going back in with a darker brown to add the weaving details. So this is how, again, you can use a darker marker to put in some finishing details for your images. And I also ended up doing the same thing with the black pen marker. So I go in again and put in my lines for my weaving over top of the dark lines from the brown. And I just feel like it adds a nice finishing detail to that basket that makes it look more realistic. I colored in my milk or my water, whatever you want it to be, my carrot, my apple, the bottle of milk or bottle of water, as well as my bread, all the little food items in our picnic basket. There is a little spot there on the top of the picnic basket that I did forget to color. I didn't realize it until I was actually doing the voiceover for this video. So we're just gonna pretend that I colored that brown. And then there's a little blanket or napkin in the side that I colored red. So now I'm going to go in with a white gel pen to add all the shine details where I think they might be. So on the little napkin, on the basket handles, on our apple and our carrot, the bottle, and then as well as our little glass of milk or water. And I'm going to add some to our cow just to finish him off. So on his toupee or hair. You can also use this white gel pen to do some coloring correction. I did this a little bit earlier. I didn't show in the video where I had some red that went outside the line. Sometimes red is hard to cover with the white, but some other colors like that blue would have been easier to cover up. I think I ended up doing that before cutting this out. But here's a closer look at all of those details and how they just add a little oomph to our die cuts. And I just used my brother's Scan and Cut to scan these images and cut them out. As far as our sentiment, I'm just using a sentiment banner. It's actually a flag banner. So what I'm doing is I'm applying it to one side where I want the straight edge, running it through my die cutting machine, and then turning that die the other way and kind of fitting it into the crevices of where that stitch line is to create the other flat end of the sentiment. So now I'm going to go ahead and piece this together. This is the fun part. So I'm creating my little scene. I have my picnic blanket on my grass, and I glued my glass cup to our cow. I put our picnic basket down, and here is where I am covering that splotch we had earlier, so no one would know any better except you guys that I had a mistake there. And then I put my cow on and our sentiment. I put our sentiment in the upper left hand corner, just hanging off the edge a tiny bit. This wasn't in the card sketch, so I added this in where I wanted it to go. But now I'm gluing down my banner with some tape runner adhesive. I'm trying to generally keep everything flat as I can because the picnic basket, the cow, and the grass, as well as the sentiment, are all popped up with foam tape. So I don't want it to have too much dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and use tape runner adhesive on this scene as well to adhere that down to my card. And then that's pretty much going to finish off our card today. So we have this cute little cow just sitting at a picnic, drinking his little glass of milk and enjoying his day and sending mooch love. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed seeing this stamp set from Pajama Crafter Stamps in action. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!